Welcome to the Brian Buffini Show, where we explore the mindsets, motivation, and methodologies of success. Here's your coach, Brian Buffini.
Well, the top of the morning to you, and excited to be with you today. We're going to cover a topic very close to my heart today. It's called 100 Days to Change Your Life. You know, for the past 26 years, I've headed up the largest small business coaching company in North America. Most of our clients are in real estate and lending, but 47 different businesses and industries are represented by our clientele. And this particular technique of 100 days to change your life is one I've been very, very passionate about for the past 26 years. In fact, 16 years ago, I built a training program called 100 Days to Greatness. And it was a transformative training program in the actual real estate industry. It was the most widely used and the most significant production program in the history of our industry. It was based on some principles that I'm going to share with you because this will work for you as just a person. This will work in every area of your life. This will work in business, in finances, in your spiritual life, in your health, your physical body, your mental well-being. And after the season many of us have been in and the challenges, whether it's been people being at home, quarantine 15, all the negativity that so many people have had to endure, maybe you're ready for a change in one or more area of your life. And the way to do that is 100 days. 100 days is kind of a magical number, and there's actually some science behind it, and I'll share with you how it can help you. It's a magical number because it sounds and feels doable. It's long enough to help you get results, but short enough to help you persevere to get through it. You know, somebody said 365 days to change your life. I know it's a year, but God, it sounds like a lot. 100 days, I believe it's the maximum number of short-term gain. That's what it is. It's as stretched out as you can. You can see the end in sight, and it's still a grind. It's 14 weeks. I have seen this change people's businesses and lives and health, and I'm so excited to give it to you. You know, my kids, one of their favorite movies when they're in high school was Coach Carter, the great basketball movie, and Samuel L. Jackson is the coach, and he says, if you improve 1% a day, then in 100 days, guess what? You'll be 100% better. And very true, very true. And so we're going to talk to you today about 3 points, as I always do. I'm going to talk to you about why 100 days and the significance of it. I'm going to talk to you about the aspect of short-term goals. And obviously, 100 days is a short-term goal. Now, a super short-term goal is 10 days, and maybe you break it up that way. Maybe you're going to do 10-day goals in order to get through your 100-day period. That all works. And then I'm going to just talk to you about the mindset and the perseverance and the energy that anybody can do anything for 100 days. You can hang on for 100 days. No matter what you have to do or how you have to persevere, you could do anything for 100 days. So let's just talk about it and talk about the significance of 100 days. Well, right off the bat, you get what's called the President's 100 Days. This is very symbolic of a new administration. They have the first 100 days. It's always been considered a benchmark of success, and it actually measures how much a president would accomplish. And this all started with FDR. The most significant policies and cabinet selections are made in this time. It was said about Ronald Reagan in the New York Times when he first became president that the first 100 days have shown that he is a president determined to change the tides of history because you could just see what he was building towards. And Ronald Reagan was a very significant president that had lasting impacts for decades after he left office. John F. Kennedy, he said, all this will not be finished in the first 100 days, nor will it be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor perhaps in our lifetime on this planet, but let us begin. And that's what's so powerful about 100 days. So from a presidential standpoint, you always hear about the significance of that 100 days. It's also considered the honeymoon of a new administration. People kind of back off, give them a little space. The same for us. In regards to pregnancy and actual life itself, that first trimester is the most critical trimester. It's when the baby develops all the major organs. Every aspect, even a baby's personality, you can start to see. You know, it was interesting. I remember we got pictures of my oldest son when we got our first sonogram. And he's laying in Beverly's womb, and his right hand is in a fist, and he's sleeping on his right hand. it was interesting to me that he was sleeping, 6 months later in the exact same position we saw on that first image. And for the first couple of years of his life, every time he went to sleep at night, he would have his right hand in a fist and his head cradled on it, and that's how he went to sleep. That first trimester is critical to the well-being of a baby. In school, studies have shown that 92% of students graduate with the same GPA as they had at the end of their first semester. Now, one of the reasons for that is that the habits are formed in the first semester. Kids are adjusting to social patterns, and they have all this. They're kind of the kid in the candy store, and they can hang out with this person and go do this and get into routines. Well, that really establishes the routines they set in that first semester are critical. And that's why if you got kids going off to college, you really press that upon them. And, that first trimester with a baby, that first 100 days of an administration. The 100 days, there is a little bit of magic to it. It's very, very powerful. And I can promise you this. The next 100 days, if you make a decision today, can change your life. Not just for 100 days, not just for this year, but for the rest of your life. And I've seen this, and I've coached this for 26 years. And 100 days is manageable. You can do anything for 100 days. We'll talk about that. So here's the next principle is the whole dynamic of this short-term goal, right? And I believe that there are 10-day goals involved in 100 days. And I would make short-term lists, and I would do it in all key areas of my life. I'd have the spiritual and the family and the business, financial, and personal. And we'll talk more about that later. The short-term goal forces you to keep your eyes on very specific prizes. Do these activities. I do these activities. It looks like a checklist. And, if you can knock off a checklist for 10 days, you can knock off a checklist for the next 10 days, and so on and so forth. And you keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. Great big things can be done when you keep your eyes on the prize. When I had the privilege of interviewing Neil Armstrong years ago, and I said, how was it you were able to pull this goal off? There were tens of thousands of people involved in the space program and huge amounts of money for back in the day, all branches of the military, dozens of government agencies, and almost 100 companies involved in the space program. How was it that you guys were able to do it? And he goes, the goal was very clear. Put a man on the moon safely to Earth by the end of the decade. And he said, every night when we went home, we could see our goal in front of us. Every time you went outside, you saw the moon, your goal was in front of you. And the opposite is true as well. One of my favorite stories I've told for years is of the swimmer Florence Chadwick, a real trailblazing swimmer in the 50s and 60s. She was known for these long-distance swims, and she went to swim from Catalina Island to Long Beach. Now, people who don't live in California, California surfers, and, the water's warm, and so on and so forth. Well, the water can be kind of chilly, to say the least. Outside of Long Beach, there's sharks. It's cold weather, and there's a lot of tidal flow. Very, very challenging swim. And so Florence, who had done remarkable swims, she swum the English Channel. She had done all these amazing feats, sets out to swim from Catalina Island to Long Beach. Well, she had a boat next to her with her supporters. They had lights. They had guns in case they saw a shark. They had medical personnel in case she got into trouble. And this was well within her range to do. But we had that day what's called the marine layer was in. And if you've ever lived on the coast in California, this is a thick fog that comes in, that settles in, and you can't see anything. Well, Florence was swimming and swimming. She's very diligent. She had trained for this. She had never given up on a swim. And she starts talking to the boat. I can't do it. I can't do it. And they're like, you're not that far away. Keep going. I can't do it. I can't do it. So finally, they pull her out of the water. And they pull her out of the water, and she gave up, and it was very, very close to her goal. And she was exhausted, and more exhausted than she'd ever been, on a swim that was not as challenging as some she had done. And afterwards, a reporter was talking to her a couple hours later, and they said, what happened? She said, I just couldn't see the coast. And because she couldn't see the goal, it weakened her. Because she couldn't see the end, it drained her, and she gave up. Sometime later, she went back to that same swim on a nice, clear Southern California day. She completed that swim with relative ease because she could see her goal. And that's why 100 days with a series of short-term goals inside it is kind of a magical formula. I set out what I want to achieve in 100 days in each area that's important. And then I set 10-day goals to reach each step along the way. So I create a goal. So for example, let's say I set a financial goal. So I set a financial goal of what I want to get accomplished in 100 days. Then I break it down into 10 steps. And then that one step becomes my 10-day goal. Let's say I'm going to set a health and fitness goal. So it might be workouts and eating, or drinking more water, that kind of stuff. And I'll set out what I want to do for 100 days, and I'll break it down to 10 steps. And I do that in every area of my life. I'll do that. Let's say there's certain books of the Bible I want to read spiritually. I break it out, and I actually break it down to chapters, and then how many chapters I want to read and study, and that's over the 100 days. And then I break it down into step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and 10 days. And what happens is it's like a Swiss cheese approach. Swiss cheese is it's a block of cheese with holes in it. Each 10 days is like a hole in the block of cheese. And you keep knocking holes and keep knocking holes and keep knocking holes. Eventually, the block of cheese is gone because you've knocked all the holes into it. So short-term goals, they're very powerful because they keep your eye on the goals. They're measurable. And if you can measure it, you can improve it. Peter Drucker says, what gets measured gets managed. My mentor, Jim Rohn, said, make measurable progress in a reasonable time. Just measurable progress in a reasonable time. You can do this with your weight. You can do this with your health. You could do this with your finance. You can do this with debts. You could do this with family goals to build and connect with family and relationships more. And you can do this with your business. You can do this with your business, and I'll talk more about that later. And then the last part of these short-term goals is it should be results-driven, okay? So, for me, I've been teaching this concept of short, mid, and long-range goals for decades. I've put more people through the physical act of goal writing than anybody in the world. Over 3 million people have physically written goals with me in a seminar environment. And I'll have them write 10-day goals, 10-month goals, and 5-year goals. Well, every time I would do one of these events, for example, for over 20 years, I did at least one of these events every month. And I would set a set of 10-day goals myself. And I'd put it on a cardstock, and I'd tape it onto the mirror in my bathroom. In the top right drawer of my bathroom, in fact, going back to 2009, because 2007 is when our house burned down, and I had them all before this. So since 2009, I completed at least one set of 10-day goals every month since 2009. So I actually have an entire drawer in my bathroom dedicated to these 10-day goals. And it's kind of a fun thing. And sometimes, by the way, I have to go back, in areas of health and weight, and you have to go back and kind of revisit some of those goals, and they become your goals again. And that's okay. That's okay. It's not like you're one and done. It's part of it. So you want to keep an eye on those short-term goals. They need to be measurable, and there should be some kind of results. Brian Tracy said the key to success is action. B.C. Forbes said a business, like an automobile, has to be driven in order to get results. And my business hero, Estee Lauder, she said, I never dreamed about success. I worked for it. And I just feel like if you work for it 10 days at a time, those short-term goals that you measure and track, they deliver the results for you. And the next thing you know, you look back, and the 100 days was a grind, but it's a short period of time. 100 days is a good amount of time looking forward, and it's nothing looking back. Any of you have kids. I'm sitting here right now as a grandpa. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how I became a grandparent. The phrase I resonate the most with when it comes to time is the days are long, the years are short. The 100 days will feel like a long time when you're pursuing your goals, but it'll feel like a blink of an eye when you look back. Let me ask you this. If you set out a set of goals of where you want to be 100 days from now, and imagine now you're looking back that those 100 days are over, and you've lost some weight, and you've paid off some debt, or you saved some money, or you bought the vacation home, or you read the books you wanted to read, your business has grown, and you've done the activities that you want to do. Boy, just that feeling and creating that picture in your mind of that sense of accomplishment. Very, very powerful. And then the last thing, I just want to encourage you, and the reason why, again, the magic of this 100 days is you can do anything for 100 days. You can do anything. You can persevere. You can tough it out. I think of the story of Louis Zamperini. I had the great privilege of meeting him and his son a number of years ago before Louis passed. And Louis was a legend in Southern California, kind of a troubled youth as a kid, but found running. Became a middle distance runner. I think he was 17 when he went to the Olympics in Germany and ran the fastest lap in the history of the Olympics at 56 seconds in the 5,000 meters in the 1936 Olympics. He found his solace in running. It became a way to change his life and so on and so forth. And if you've ever seen the movie Unbroken, Louis' story is where his plane crashes into the Pacific. So they were 47 days adrift in a raft. Can you imagine? They had no food. They had no drinking water in the blazing hot sun in the Pacific. No one could find them. You talk about 100 days, right? Imagine that 47 days. It would have felt like 47 months. And then it went on. There were sharks. There was heat. They had, typhoon swells, fighter pilots shooting at them. It was unbelievable. And eventually, he gets captured by a Japanese soldier and spends another 2 years in a prisoner of war camp. And he's tortured almost every day of that experience, okay? And what a phenomenal story and a phenomenal man. But he just talks about how, you really can endure almost anything. And I just think if you can focus on 100 days, I can do anything for 100 days. I could do anything for 100 days. I could eat broccoli alone for 100 days. I can do anything for 100 days. I can put up with anything for 100 days. And so can you. And one of these 100-day cycles could change your whole life. Now, I often talk about the 5 circles that we teach on: spiritual, family, business, financial, personal. And typically, the way to approach this is you pick the area that needs the most work. Now, typically what we like to do, all of us, is we'll pick the area that we're best at. Kids like to study their favorite subject, right? But what I've found in the area of personal growth and development is that the area that's most at risk and most in trouble will invariably bring the others down. So what I'm going to encourage you to do at the very least is to pick the area that needs your most attention. If it's health, weight, pick that. If it's your finances and debt, pick that. If it's your family and relationships, you pick that. And you pick the area that's most in need. Now, at this stage of the game, I've been doing this a long time, and if you've been listening to me for a long time, you can take a 5-circle approach. You can do this with all 5 circles, and you can chip away one 10-day unit at a time. But definitely what you want to do is in the area that's most in trouble, that's the one you want to make the priority. Because if you gain momentum in that area, it will bring life to all the others, I promise you. Very, very powerful. I love the quote from Carol Burnett says, "Only I can change my life. No one can do it for me." Personally, I get thousands of letters here every month. You've changed my life. You've changed my life. I always reply back. Usually it was their coach, the training program they took. We were glad to help. But at the end of the day, what we did was we helped facilitate somebody changing their own life. A great coach can help facilitate you, support you, connect, and pull you through. A great coach will help you change your life faster than you will by yourself. They'll help you avoid making mistakes that you'll make that'll give you setbacks or take you off track. But at the end of the day, I've been interviewed many, many times, and people will say, "How many people's lives do you think you changed, Brian?" I go, "One. I know one person's life I changed, and that's my own." But between myself and the organization I built and the team I built, we've come alongside people who've decided to change their life and coached them up and trained them up and held them accountable, encouraged them and propped them up and cheered them on and celebrated the victories and were there during the setbacks and the losses. The fact is, like Carol Burnett says, only I can change my life. No one can do it for me. Leo Tolstoy said, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves." We have to. What we want is we want to change our circumstances. That's what we all want. I want to change my circumstances. Don't really want to change myself. But the truth is, the most important thing in this life is who you're becoming. Who you're becoming. And by the way, who you're becoming, you can make a catalyst for that in 100 days. Now, it doesn't mean everything in your life gets changed in 100 days, but everything in your life can be changed because of the 100 days. That's the power. And so, to me, I pick the area that needs the help the most, and then I move from one circle to the next. And in regards to my emphasis, now, I might be doing little things and 10-day goals in each area, but I'm going, hey, right now, my number one goal is my health. Boom, that's where it's going. And that's where I'm starting this year, by the way. That's where I've got a good foundation of working out and so on and so forth. But I've made a commitment for the first 100 days of 2021 to totally immerse myself into my health, my well-being, my conditioning, my weight, everything. That's where my focus is. And so then I'm going to shift to another area. Now, other areas are going to improve, and I'm going to continue to do other things. I've got work to do and spiritual goals to set and achieve and so on and so forth. But my area of emphasis will be in health for the next 100 days, my well-being. So that's what I recommend you do, is move from one circle to the next. Niccolo Machiavelli said, one change always leaves the way open for the establishment of others. Emily Dickinson said, one step at a time is all it takes to get you there. And it is. One circle at a time, one goal at a time, 10 days at a time, and then 100-day period at a time. It will change your life. And lastly, I want to talk to those of you who own a business, especially those in the real estate and lending business. Is one of the blessings of last year is we used to build a training program every 7 years. Well, in 2020, because I have access to our own production studio, I have all this talent in video and editing and so on and so forth, and we weren't on the road all the time, is we built 3 training programs. And one that is absolutely going to change the world is called 100 Days to Greatness. And so for those of you who may be thinking of getting into real estate, maybe you were in and you're going to restart, or maybe you've been underperforming in your career in real estate or lending, we have something that's going to change your world. It just started actually this week. So this is a brand new program. It's an old name because I've been teaching this concept for a long time. But we built a program that can either be facilitated by a broker or manager, or you can take it with us directly online. And it's 21 video training modules that are built into 14 weeks. 14 weeks, 100 days. It has an interactive workbook, and we give you all the resources, the mailings, the things to send out, the notes. It's got an online tracking system because we know we have to track, and you can only improve what you measure. And so it has state-of-the-art online tracking system, and then an online resource center with videos and resources blow your mind. And I've done something that I've never done before in my career, which is I brought the camera crews with me. As a guy who's 35 years in the business, the old dog got back in the mound and threw some pitches. It was cool. I'll be honest with you. It was one of the funnest things I've done in years. And I held an open house and had some people come in, and I connected with them and showed people exactly how to connect with someone looking at an open house and turn them into a client. And then you see me on the buyer appointment. You see me showing the house and how to show a house like a pro, the buyer appointments and the listing appointments and all the different things you need to do. What I love about this program is if someone's never sold a house in their life, within 100 days, they'll be a capable agent. And what to do, how to do it, and the way to do it. And it's world class. In fact, it's such a significant program that the National Association of Realtors, a 1.4 million member trade association, in their 112-year history has never partnered with a training company. But they've partnered up with Buffini & Company on this 100 days program. So if you want to check it out, go to our website, buffiniandcompany.com, and then check out 100 days. You can see this new program. So if you want to get your business going, if you're in any kind of service business, it's there for you. But it's fabulous, a fabulous training. Best thing I ever built. And very, very excited and excited to share it in concert with the content of what we're covering here today. So as we finish here today, what did we talk about? We talked about the significance of 100 days. We talked about the power of short-term goals and that you can do anything for 100 days. Now, I want you to say out loud, if you're listening to this in your car or out in your walk, I want you to say out loud, I can do anything for 100 days. I want you to start saying it to people you know and care about. I can do anything for 100 days. And maybe you put a calendar on your mirror, maybe you do a little countdown. I can do anything for 100 days. I think it's one of the greatest affirmations you can have. You know, Louis Zamperini went through something I never did and persevered in a remarkable way. And he said, I made it this far and refused to give up because all my life I had always finished the race. He said, to persevere, I think it's important for everybody. Don't give up. Don't give in. You know, 100 days sounds short until you get into it. And about halfway through, it starts to become a bit tricky and you start to wander and give up and you're not seeing progress and all that kind of stuff. But when you look back, that 100 days, like a blink of an eye. You can do this. 100 days to change your life. Maybe it's in your spiritual walk. Maybe you're feeling no peace. Maybe you have anxiety. Maybe you're stressed out. We live in an increasingly secular world, and the word spirituality is thrown around a lot. For me, it's a relationship with Christ. It's the understanding of growing deep in my worship of God, in my appreciation of God, my relationship with God, reading the Bible, praying, spending time with my wife praying. And by the way, in my 30 years plus of marriage, there's times when we're better in habits than other times. And so, again, this is an area my bride and I committed to about 100 days ago, and it's produced tremendous fruit. Maybe in your family relationships, you need to invest 100 days. Maybe you're going to start writing notes and reaching out and sending text messages and call people. that are in your close relationships with you that you want to go deeper with, and invest those times. Invest those times. You know, give the extra hug, give the extra word of encouragement, build a relationship, spend the time, slow down, spend the time. Maybe in your personal life, maybe in your mental well-being. You know, so many people have just been beat up and down and depressed in a year that just couldn't get any worse. It went from bad to worse, bad to worse. I was driving yesterday, and I haven't been flipped off driving in my car maybe 10 years. I got flipped off twice yesterday. And one time I was letting a bicycle go through an intersection, and it was there right away, and the guy behind me is flipping me off. And it's like, you know what? I thought, man, people are really wrapped tight. And we all need a little help. And a lot of people are struggling emotionally. Can we help people with 100 days? Can we help ourselves with 100 days? Maybe you're not feeling so good. Maybe you've been down. Is there some things you've done in the past that helped you feel good, physically, emotionally? Can you do some things like that? Are there some books you could read? Are there people you can go see? Is there programs? You know, I have a couple of things I watch and listen to that just put me in a good mood. I'll share one I watched last night. Jim Valvano. People know Jim Valvano because he made a speech at the ESPYs that turned into this great movement to raise money for cancer and so on and so forth. But Jim Valvano, if you go to YouTube, he made a speech to the $1 Million Round Table. It was a keynote address a couple of years after he won the national championship in basketball with North Carolina State. And you know what? As a presenter, as a guy who knows how to tell a joke, tell a story, inspire people, I watched this and I just like, man, it's one of the best keynote presentations I ever saw. It is downright funny. It is entertaining. It is enlightening. It's inspiring. And I've watched that thing a lot, but that's what I watched last night. And I got to tell you, it put me in a good place. I'm after breaking out all my old recordings of Jim Rohn. That's what I got listening to in my car. Okay? And I have a lot of cassette tapes of Jim Rohn. I don't even have a cassette player anymore. So I'm having to work extra hard to find the ways to play some of those things that really do well for me mentally. So in the physical area of my life, I'm actually going to be doing a program developed by a gentleman by the name of Nick Hardwick. Nick Hardwick's a friend of mine. He played for the San Diego Chargers for 11 years as a lineman, and he's developed a program and a system called Lose Like a Lineman. Nick himself lost 100 pounds in 5 months 6 years ago. He's kept the weight off and has now helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people lose weight following his very simple system. So just a couple days from now, you're going to get to hear a podcast interview with Nick Hardwick called Lose Like a Lineman. And for 100 days, we're going to be doing this program together. And so I'm doing that. I think you're going to be excited about it. And we have some free resources for you that'll be great. So make sure you tune in just a couple days to episode 260, where we interview Nick Hardwick. He's got a great story. It's really inspirational. But he's also, if you're interested in losing a few pounds, that's the answer for you. So we can do anything. Maybe in your finances, you need to take a look. What can you do? Could you pay down some debt? Could you bring in some extra revenue? Can you shave a few expenses? How can you help your finances? What can you do? You can do anything for 100 days. And 100 days from now, I'm going to do this. We're going to do a podcast, and I want you to send me your success stories. I want you to email me and let me know what's happened for you. And I want to do a podcast where I just read off your success stories for an entire episode. 100 days from now, 100 days from now, where can you be? 100 days from now, how can you feel? 100 days from now, how much momentum can you have? 100 days. I've seen this for 30 years. I know what I'm talking about. We've coached tens of thousands of people. I've trained millions. Take it from me. It can change your life. It can change your life. Well, I'm going to leave you with the Irish blessing here today because I'm so fired up. For the next 100 days, I'm on the program with you. So here's my blessing to all of you. May the roads rise up to meet you, and may the wind always be at your back. May the rains fall soft upon your fields and the sunshine warm upon your face. And until we meet again, 100 days from now, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. We'll see you next time.